He woke up in his aunt's bed, blinking against the white glare of the morning sun. He felt her calloused hand move gently over his swollen jawline, long before he saw her red-rimmed eyes peering down at him. "How do you feel, Alfred, honey?" Her voice, usually so warm and light, sounded husky and tired. "I'm okay, Aunt Pearl." "Thank the Lord." She lowered herself to the edge of the narrow bed. "We was so scared for you, Alfred. Prayed all night, prayed to God and to your sweet mama, rest her soul. Got right down on, it's okay, Aunt Pearl, I'm okay." He moved his legs under the sheet, then his arms, numb, aching pain everywhere, but everything moving, nothing broken. "What happened, Alfred?" "When Henry and Mr. Johnson carried you." "Henry?" "He found you. You was wandering around with your eyes shut, and he went and got his daddy to help carry you home. What happened, Alfred?" "The old stone fence off Lenox, Aunt Pearl. I was walking on it, and a big dog jumped up, knocked me off." "Uh-huh," she said, but he could see by her eyes. She knew he was lying. She turned, and he saw his three little cousins jammed in the doorway, staring at him. "You heard what happened. Now you go out and play. Go ahead, get Alfred a chance to rest. Charlene, you be sure you're all back for supper. Mrs. Elverson's having a party, and I'll be bringing home all kinds of good things." The twins began to edge back, but Charlene kept staring. It seemed to Alfred that her eyes were red-rimmed too. "Go on now." Aunt Pearl waited until they had clattered out of the apartment and down the tenement stairs before she turned back to Alfred. She was frowning. "James was arrested last night, Alfred, for trying to break into Epstein's." "I know." "You knew about it? Him going?" "Yes." "But you wasn't with him, that right?" "That's right." "He wanted you to go, that right?" When he didn't answer, she leaned closer. "Who beat you, Alfred?" "I fell off the fence." She shook her head, her hands again on his aching face. "Oh, Alfred, it's like you're my own son. I know you try so hard, you're so good. I know it ain't easy living here. Some day we're gonna move away, Alfred, and we—" She began to cry softly. After a while, she rose and smoothed the front of her cotton dress. "I got to work now, Alfred. Be back about 8 tonight. You rest. There's some food by the bed. You eat something right now." She paused at the door and forced a smile. Weakly, he waved back and slipped again into sleep. It was noon when he woke again. His head felt clear. The pain in his arms and legs seemed to have eased. Biting carefully on aching teeth, he ate the bread and cheese and bologna she had left by the bed, and drank some of the milk, now warm. Street sounds floated up through the open window. Children yelling, the thud of a rubber ball against the pavement, four voices singing, "Hey, baby, you're number one. You're—" Cars honking Saturday strollers out of their way. Far off he heard a police siren knife through the street noise. He felt it in his belly. James was in jail. He burrowed deeper into the bed. It was his fault, letting it slip about the money in the cash register. His fault again for not remembering about the new burglar alarm. Nice bed, soft and safe, away from all of them, he thought. Major and Hollis out on the street, looking to get me. The Epsteins, they'll be asking questions on Monday morning. They know James is my best friend. Was my best friend. No partner, nothing. Stay in bed, man. Curl up like a baby. Close your eyes. Make the world go away. The big white world full of cans to stack and floors to sweep and pails of garbage to drag out back. Big job. Maybe James was right to try to get some of that money. Only wrong to get caught. Just stay in bed, man, until you're 18. Then join the army. No, stay in bed forever. He made himself get up then, pushing his long, wiry legs over the edge of the bed, standing on the little throw rug until the quivering stopped. He went into the bedroom. He went to the bathroom and patted cold water on his face before he looked at himself in the mirror. There were specks of dried blood on his hair. His left eye was swollen and bloodshot. His bony face was puffy, especially around the jaw and lips. There was a long scratch down the side of his nose and another high on his right cheek. Not so bad. Looked worse that time I really fell off the stone fence. He grinned. Major and Hollis, for all their talk, they can't even rob a store or beat a guy up right. Just punks. Then he remembered that James was in jail, and the grin disappeared. He walked into the front room and sat down on the worn couch that opened into a double bed for Charlene and the twins. He turned on the television set. A slim, pretty white woman was standing in a shiny kitchen, as big as Aunt Pearl's apartment, telling her tall, handsome husband how worried she was about Billy. He was spending all his free time in the garage, and he wouldn't let anybody in except Gus the dog. The husband puffed on his pipe and said he'd look into it, and went outside, walking across a big lawn and under trees. He knocked on the garage door. Billy yelled, "Who's there?" Dad yelled back, "The FBI." And there was tinny sounding laughter. Billy yelled, "Just a minute, Dad," and there he was, about 14, scrambling around trying to hide the robot he was building. "Yeah, sure," said Alfred, snapping off the television. He went back into his aunt's bedroom. The four voices on the street were getting louder. "Number 1 on my top 10. You're—" But as soon as Alfred's head touched the pillow, he was falling again into sleep. The third time he awoke, it was dusk. An occasional peal of drunken laughter drowned out the hoarse yells of tired children and the stoop chatter and the muted noise of a dozen transistors on different stations. He got up and went into the kitchen, enjoying the coolness of the cracked linoleum under his bare feet. The fold-away bed he usually slept in was tucked behind the refrigerator. He wondered if Aunt Pearl had slept in it, or stayed up all night. The sharp blue slacks he had worn were in a corner, next to Aunt Pearl's box of dusting rags. They were shredded. He put on a pair of clean cotton pants and the blue tennis shirt with a little alligator on the pocket that Mrs. Elverson had gave him for Christmas. He slipped on the black loafers that Jeff had outgrown. Cousin Jeff. Be hearing enough about him tomorrow. He let himself out of the apartment quietly, so quietly that he surprised two drug addicts fumbling in the hall toilet. They looked up, startled, then saw it was only Alfred, and went back to their spoons and needles. For a moment he thought they were lucky. They'd be getting out of the world for a while. But then he remembered all the old-looking, sick junkies he saw on the streets, hunched up, desperate for a fix. "Major and Sonny been looking for you," said a little boy on the stoop. Alfred nodded, trying to look cool. He went a few blocks out of his way so he could walk down an avenue where he knew he wouldn't meet Major. There were big cats there that even Major was afraid of, out to get him for something or other. The girls were still cruising, guys with their Saturday night girls, guys looking for Saturday night girls. Live music floated out of an upstairs apartment, and there was a burst of laughter. Alfred jammed his hands into his pockets and walked faster. Half a dozen boys his age lounged on a corner, and one of them called to him. He just put his head down and walked on. Couples strolled by, arm in arm. He looked up once and saw Henry across the street, dragging his bad leg and smiling as if being crippled was the best thing in the world. Probably coming back from the gym, thought Alfred. Maybe tonight Mr. Donatelli let him wash the fighter's socks. Then he remembered that Henry had brought him home, and he dropped to his knees behind a parked car. When passers-by stared at him, he pretended he was searching for a lost coin. He waited until Henry had turned the corner. He didn't feel like thanking anyone for anything tonight. He crossed the street and started down a block he hardly ever walked on, a block of low apartment buildings, a storefront church, a delicatessen, a pawn shop, and on the corner a bar. Above the bar, on a dusty plate glass window, were the faded letters, "Dark Dr. Arthur Corey, Dentist." Above that, on a dustier window, and even more faded letters, "Donatelli's Gym." A light was burning. He stood on the corner for a long time, looking up at the dim light until his neck hurt and his eyes watered. A jukebox was blaring through the open door of the bar, but he barely heard it. Donatelli's Gym. The door leading up to the dentist office in the gym was sagging off its hinges, half open. Beyond it was darkness. Donatelli's Gym. Joe Louis had worked out there once. He remembered his father talking about how he had gone over to watch. Maybe Sugar Ray Robinson, too. They weren't no slaves, and they didn't have to bust into anybody's grocery store. They made it. They got to be somebody. He thought about going into the darkness, up to the dim light on the third floor. Maybe if James was around, we could both. He turned to walk away and saw the familiar muscular figure walking toward him with that rolling swagger. Major. Wildly, Alfred bolted across the street, sidestepping a taxicab by inches, ignoring the horns and curses of braking drivers. On the other side, he glanced over his shoulder and stopped. It wasn't Major after all. Slave. Always going to be running, Alfred? And running alone? He waited until the light turned green for him, and he strode back across the street up to the door. A quivering chill ran up his legs, and his teeth began to grind, and a ball of ice formed in the pit of his stomach. And he took a breath and plunged through the door into the darkness, a choking, musty darkness that stank of stale wine and antiseptic and sweat and urine and liniment. He hit the first step, feeling it sag under him, but he kept going. Up wooden steps worn so smooth his loafers slipped backwards. But the chilly legs were getting warmer now. But one after another, Alfred, panting, huffing, low steps, but hundreds of them, thousands of them in the darkness. The stairs so steep he sometimes fell to all floors, scrambling higher, past the sign, Dr. Corey, past the sign, Gym third floor. Faster until his breath tangled in his ribs, higher until his throat was dry, faster, higher until a door loomed before him. Gym. A faint light leaked through a crack, and he hurled himself up at it, paused, took another breath, and plunged into a large, murky room. Yeah? A short, stocky man with crew-cut white hair looked up. His pale face was smooth and hard. I, I'm, I'm Alfred Brooks, he said, gasping. I come to be a fighter. The stocky man did not smile or change his expression. Okay, Alfred Brooks, he said, take off your shirt.